Hancock, UGA Forage Extension Specialist, Grassman. Wanted to give you a little bit of some of the highlights from the Expo this week. We had a great Sunbelt Ag Expo, their 40th anniversary, so big shout out to the guys down there. Did a great job with a fantastic show, and they ordered up some great weather for us as well. So just wanted to share some of those experiences and some of the things that we got to see and do, and hope that you'll enjoy this little bit of a montage of several different things. We're going to be looking at some of the hay demonstrations that they did. We'll also go out to the field and look at peanut and cotton harvesting. We even went up in the airplane for a little bit, and then we'll also talk a little bit about some of our seminars, and one of those that we'll feature is the calibration clinic that we did looking at calibrating our no-till drills. So talk a little bit about that and share that with you too. So I hope you enjoy this montage, and look forward to seeing you at the next Sunbelt Ag Expo, third week of October in 2018.
In the alfalfa hay category is Seldom Rest Farm out of Pulaski, Tennessee, with an RFQ at 269.
Well, the moment is finally here. We're very excited to announce the overall winner for the highest RFQ in 2017. And the award this year goes to Seldom Rest Farms out of Pulaski, Tennessee.
If I spin it this way, nothing happens. Actually, it does happen. You come and look. If you go one way, you'll see it's got little teeth on it. But if I spin it the other way, nothing happens. Okay? So that cotton travels around that drum once it, obviously the stalk's coming through here. And then it gets to the back side over here. We've got what we call a doffer column. Right? What happens is that spindle, and it's spinning, and it slides right on the bottom side of this doffer column. All of a sudden, that cotton that's on there gets wiped off. When it gets wiped off, it goes right into that air chute and right up to the accumulator. Okay? So that's how the head works. Again, keep in mind that the drums are spinning in sequence with the ground speed up to 4.8 miles an hour. So from 4.8 to 5.4, it's constant speed, and there is no difference. Once the cotton gets out of the head, it goes to our accumulator. If you look at the top of that grate on the side, you'll see a little sensor. So we'll fill that accumulator full. The sensor says, hey, I'm full, and tells the computer, look, if you keep going, doing, dummy? I'm going to stop up. So all of a sudden it turns our baling chamber on. So it starts spinning. It's got a feed floor that empties out from the bottom of that accumulator, starts feeding cotton into that bale chamber. No different than a hay baler. That's what starts forming our cotton module. Okay, so we don't call the round things cotton bales, those are cotton modules. Once we get to the gin with our modules, all right, we're gonna have a little history lesson. Everybody remember that guy that invented that cotton gin? What was his name?
Eli Whitney.
All right, where did Eli Whitney invent his cotton gin at?
Florida.
No. Georgia. Specifically where? Eli had a plantation right outside of Savannah. Okay. And what Eli did was he says, well, we've got to get our lint cotton. Okay. That's what we get paid off of. We don't get paid off of this, which comes right off the stalk, because it's got seeds, it's got trash, it's got bark, it's got everything else in it. We get paid off the lint cotton. So once we get 480 pounds of this, that is a cotton bale. Okay. So I know it might seem like a little bit different with terminology, but a cotton bale is 480 pounds of lint cotton. Okay. I can't do math. I'll round it up to 500, but that's just me. All right, you're gonna do me a favor real quick. I want you to take your finger and break that. Nope, just push it right through. Push it right through. There you go, perfect. Real simple, real easy. So once we get our cotton lint, everybody likes their t-shirts and their socks and their underbreeches and their jeans, right? All right, let's see how tough you are now. What happened? Just by twisting that 10 times, we've got strength to it, okay? And that's how we make yarn. And then a bunch of yarn gets put together, and that's how you got your shirt, or your socks, or your underbreeches. Assuming that you got your underbreeches on. But that's how, in a concept, that's how they make rope too. So hemp rope, again, just twist it, and all of a sudden it becomes strong. Okay? Obviously, different varieties of cotton have different tensile strengths once you twist it, and there's standards for all that. Our job from John Deere is to get it off of that stalk and into that round module where it's dry. Okay, so we've got it wrapped in that plastic, it's dry. If you look at a traditional module, which would be the yellow thing that has the tarp over it, 4 of our round modules at 90 to 94 inches would equal 1 of those traditional modules. Okay. New for model year 18, the machine's got weight on it, so we can tell you how much each one of those round modules weighs, as well as the moisture content. So all that comes on the screen as we dump it off. Once that module comes off in the field, we know the GPS coordinates of it, we know how much it weighs, we know what the moisture is, and we know who it belongs to, so the client, the farm, the field that it came out of. So all that data is associated with that little RFID tag in each one of those modules. The module truck will come pick it up, and when it goes to the gin, they've got a horseshoe looking RFID tag reader. And as that truck passes through, then all of a sudden each one of those modules is tracked and it goes into the computer system, and no more do you have to get your spray can out and go paint the side of your traditional module with who owns it. Okay. Australia, that technology is required. 100% of our machines in Australia are using Harvest ID, which is that technology piece. So again, it's a tracking way that we can't say that, well, Johnny stole Billy's cotton.
so how do you set this thing? You have a nut on this side, and you have a nut on this side. You loosen it. The second seed comes in, everybody wants to come and by and take a look before we get out of here. It's graduated, so it's got 1/4 inch, 3/8, half, all the way up to 7/8. On the boxes, it tells you if it's a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1 ratio on the sprockets. In order to change the sprockets, I got to walk a little bit. But right back here, takes no tools. Pull a pin, slide off the 2-to-1, pull out the 1-to-1, slide the 2-to-1 in. That's how you change 1-to-1, 2-to-1. Who knows what the difference between a drill and a planter is? I know you do. You've heard me say it. A planter simulates your seed. If you want to seed every 1 inch, it'll put it there. A drill is nothing more than a controlled spill. How many pounds per acre do you want to put out there? That's all it does. So in order to calibrate this thing, very simple. You find out what seed you're planting. You take a cupful, like an old coffee cup, and set it over a couple of these openers. Pull your tube off. Has anybody got Walmart bags at home? You don't know what to do with? I got something you can do with them now. You take them, you put a rubber banding on there, over that seed, and then you take this tire, your drive tire, and if you've got 7.5 inch spacing like we have here, you roll it 15 times, the direction you're going, and you catch that. If it's a 10 inch spacing, you roll it 20 times. You do about 4 or 5 of those, and you weigh them to the nearest gram. You weigh them on a scale, your wife's food scale, by grams. And those grams are going to give you the number of pounds per acre. The spacing is going to tell you, it's going to get you close, but that weight is going to give you pounds per acre. You average 3 or 4 of those, and that's what you're going to put out. Now we have a small seed box that you're going to put out if you're going to mix. If you're going to put out 3 different varieties like she talked about, or you put the 2 varieties in here because it's got a stir in there. It's going to keep the small seeds from falling down and the big seeds from falling back. Another thing about this, our drill, is we have a swivel press wheel. I know everybody here has completely straight rows, and they never turn with it on the ground like they're not supposed to do, right? What this does is this allows you to follow the contour of that turn and keeps that press wheel from sliding your seed out of that trench. It's also a double rib with a soft center. We'll make sure you feel this. What that does is that keeps you, if you have a round, that's going to split that seed a lot of times if you have too much pressure on it. As far as setting depth on our machine, each one of those notches is a 1/4 inch. So you can plant from a 1/4 inch down to 4 inches. I don't know what you want to plant 4 inches, but you can do that. Everyone is individualized, so if you're behind the tires on the tractor, you can deepen those a little bit because they're going to be a little bit more compact. Another thing we have are these little soil control devices. And anytime you put a blade in the ground, it's going to throw dirt when you start moving. What these soil control devices, they do 2 things. They keep that dirt in that trench as it's starting to blow. But if you have a little bit of wetter conditions, because you got to plant when you got to plant, it keeps that dirt in there because the wetter it is going to blow it out, but it allows you to get in there a day or 2 sooner than you would if it was too wet. You're still going to be able to go. I've seen guys plant this thing 12, 14 miles an hour all day long in no-till or conventional till conditions. We make this from 7.5 foot up to 40 foot. 7.5 inch spacing, 10 inch spacing. Any questions? I'm going to be around a little while.
Let me make a few comments as well, just to kind of fill in a few other things too. One thing I want to go back to what he was talking about with the down pressure there and the cutting force that is applied there, especially those that are going to be using a no-till drill with a coulter. It's extremely important to be cutting enough of a slot there with those coulters to be able to get the double disc opener there to be able to cut and make the furrow. Especially if you're trying to drill into really thick sod, Bermuda grass, and especially Bahia grass. Bahia grass has such a really tough mat, it's really hard to get through. the kind of down pressure he's been talking about, though, is going to be sufficient to get through Bahia grass. But a lot of these will not be able to do that, especially some of our rented drills. So you need to have either extra weight on there, or maybe even go in ahead of time and actually do a slight disking in front of the drill, just to make sure you're cutting through that sod. What I really do like about this depth control that they have here is it's going to set it where it's not going to be planted too deep. And it's very common for us to plant seeds too deep, especially our clover plants. Ryegrass oftentimes can be planted too deep. The small grains that we were talking about earlier, rye and oats and wheat and things like that, those really do need to be deep. So we would plant those with the large hopper box typically, and then we would make sure that those are going to be about 1 inch deep. But if you're planting small grains with clover or small grains with ryegrass, that ryegrass and the clover need to be much more shallow. Okay, so plant the ryegrass and the small the clover seed in the small hopper box, the small seed box. All right. One trick that you can do there, particularly for clover and ryegrass, if you do have a fear of planting a little too deep, you can take this drop tube off here, just a simple using of your channel locks there to get that depressed and pulled off, and you can take a cable tie and tie it right down so it's dropping right in front of this press wheel. Okay, and even if you don't have one that's swivel like this, which I really do like that feature, but if you don't have one that's it's not a swivel and it's fixed, you should be able to just push it right in front of that press wheel and route it with the cable tie since it drops right there. A couple other things that worth pointing out is depth control and making sure you're getting the right depth. You talked about the options here, but you also need to make sure and just double check it when you're out in the field. Okay, on most of these they're not going to have quite a nice setup on the depth control here, so you're going to have to play around with it and adjust it, right? So what you'll need to do is actually get some seed like he was talking about for calibrating. You also need to make sure you get that seed and go through a few passes and make sure you're putting it the right depth. Now what I like to do is to take maybe a gallon-sized Ziploc bag full of seed, lay it out on some ground or on a table or something like that, and with some cover underneath it, and spray paint it with orange turf paint. That orange turf paint makes it really easy to see. Okay, you want to make sure that's good and dry before you actually put it into the hopper box. But if it's good dry, then you can put it in there. Then you have a lot easier time seeing the seed. That seed is really hard. Many of these are going to be yellow or kind of a brownish color to begin with. Trying to find that in yellow or brown soil is hard to do. So use some turf paint there to help you out. A couple other things that is worth pointing out is safety. This one actually has a control to make sure that when you're in transport mode that it doesn't come down. But this right here is also very, very important too. Many of you, especially our cattlemen, particularly closer into metro areas, you're traveling up and down the roads, people are in a hurry, they're not paying attention, they're on their phones, they're going to run over you. We've had a lot of disasters that have occurred in the last few years of people running into tractors that are going down the road. So be sure you're using that. Use your flashers on your vehicle. Use the flashers on the implement if it's available to you. All right. What else? Oh, a couple other things too. Many of you are going to be using rented drills, right? And you're usually oftentimes going to be renting these from soil conservation services or what have you, soil conservation districts. Those drills. Maybe yours doesn't have this problem, but some of them are not maintained real well. Somebody didn't take good care of it when they were using it. Sometimes the press wheel is not following in behind where the double disc opener is at. Maybe the coulter is not actually cutting in front of the double disc opener anymore because somebody was turning it too much with it in the ground. So make sure that they're perfectly aligned and that everything is lining up so the press wheel presses it down. They also tend to put more than just seed through these hopper boxes sometimes. Some folks like to put fertilizer and things like that through it. That's not a really good practice unless you don't really care that much about your drill. But some people do that, so be sure you calibrate. Just because that box right there, and that table on that box says you're putting out 20 pounds of ryegrass seed does not necessarily mean that's what you're putting out. Okay, it probably meant that whenever it came out of the factory, but by the time it's covered a few hundred acres with Bubba Johnson down the road who doesn't take care of equipment, then it's going to be a bit of a challenge. Okay. Make sure you clean it out really good too. One of the other real issues that often happens is these corrugated tubes. The spiders absolutely love those corrugated tubes, and they will clog up those tubes, and you won't realize it until you get about 5 or 6 acres planted, and you go out and you see seed pouring out the back of those seed cups all the time. So just make sure that those are good and clear. Use a compressed air system to blow it all out. Make sure it's good and clean so it's dropping that seed.
We really hope you enjoyed that video montage, and we hope that we get a chance to see you down at Expo next year, 3rd week of October of 2018. Look forward to seeing you there. We'll see you down the road.